You are listening to the Earplug Podcast Network, a Fanboys Inc. production.
If you're passionate for what you love and you're serious about it, when you see our cameras at the show, then we want to talk about it. Fair weather fans need not apply. We seek nerds that are true.
All right, ComiConn. Hey guys, we're ready to start. Are you guys excited? You guys ready? This guy seems the most ready. A comedian, right? Is that what we got going on here? Yeah. So then you were a fan of the Broken Lizard stuff. And then, do you guys like Super Troopers? Yeah. How many of you saw the new one? Yeah. Okay, well then we're all just going to watch it right now then instead. No, I'm just kidding. That's not what we're going to do. So we're going to have an amazing panel, and I want to thank you all for being here on behalf of ComiConn. And without further ado, we're going to bring up your moderators, the Angrygeeks, everybody. Give it up for them! Wow!
Watch out for that stuff.
It was a DJ, man. You should have played
It was the DJ.
You should have played that.
All right, Jeremy, that's enough. That's enough. Jamie, you got an announcement to make. Mortals!
Yes, mortals! Yeah, he does this to me all the time. There are microphones out here, so any questions you might have, you can just ask it. Yeah. Don't be quiet.
Don't be quiet.
Quiet.
Introduce our guest, please.
All right, we have Erik Stolhanske.
Well, Super Troopers. Don't hug Jeremy. Don't hug Jar Jar. No. Welcome to your panel.
Hi. Hey, everybody knows who this is, right? Nobody.
Who came up with the name Rabbit?
I was going to ask.
It's funny, I've been
All right, fine, go ahead.
getting asked recently. I have no idea. Actually, I make up a story for it. I think it was supposed to be, in Super Troopers, I was supposed to be the earnest kind of eyes into the world, and a rabbit seemed like a cute little bunny thing that would be the eyes into the world.
Okay. Well, you guys all went to college together, and then the whole Broken Lizard troupe, right?
Yeah, all five of us went to Colgate University together, and we were good pals in school, and decided to form a comedy group back at university. And then after we graduated, we went down to New York City and we did a sketch in Greenwich Village at a cabaret bar for 5 years. It's kind of where we disappeared and no one ever saw us. And then we re-emerged 5 years later, basically onto the independent film scene, because Sundance was just starting out. And people were wondering, where did these guys come from?
Well, you can say fuck. It's okay.
Can you?
Yeah.
Sure. Because in the comedy scene, like we came up at the same time as like Jon Stewart and Louis C.K. and David Tell and all these guys, but they all spent time together in comedy clubs together, and they all knew each other, Sarah Silverman, and then we kind of came out of nowhere, and people literally thought we were sort of like an overnight success because we just went to Sundance and made a comedy film, and people thought that we just started like that, but really we had been in these cabaret bars in Greenwich Village, like grinding it out, doing sketch comedy for about 5 years with no audience. Until we kind of got our sea legs, and then we kind of figured out how to do comedy in front of like 10 people on a Friday and Saturday night.
Kind of like Jeremy Jacob. Go ahead.
What?
Jeremy's distracting me.
Sorry. I know a lot about you, so I'm pointing out.
Yes.
I'm your favorite stalker.
You were at those Greenwich Village shows, weren't you?
Your last name means steel glove.
It does. In Swedish, yeah. My last name is Stolhanske, and it comes from a Scandinavian roots, in Scandinavia. And like a body of armor, you know, the hand would be a Stolhanske. So that's nice thing.
So what?
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say,
I'm fanboying.
Fanboying. What are you up to nowadays?
What, yeah?
I can go there. Go ahead, you guys can clap. Go ahead.
Very polite crowd. I'm at the Foxwood ComiConn.
At the Foxwood
These
ComiConn.
days, I think there's some wonderful people here.
Wonderful people there.
You You can stop now, Lewis.
You can, okay. You can stop now, Lewis.
All right. So, with all these movies you guys done, by the way, all of them are amazing. I rewatched Slam and Salmon this week. Hilarious stuff. He played Guy.
Guy Matrix. I saw Lance Hendrickson's here today.
They trust us with him tomorrow.
Oh, that's awesome. He's so funny. He's great.
Oh, dude, hilarious stuff. You guys, who writes all of these?
I do.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's always an answer. If anybody asks, like, who wrote what joke, if you ask anybody in the group, they'll all say I do. But that's sort of our inside joke. We all write very collaboratively. There's 5 of us. Like I said, we started as a sketch comedy group, doing live shows for a long time. So one of the things we learned very early on is never to cast early in the process. Puddle Cruiser was our first movie made for Super Troopers, and we kind of had our ideas for our characters, and then you found that you would write for your own self, and that you wouldn't write to develop every other character. So after that, we decided that the last thing we would do was cast. And so when we started writing Super Troopers, like, you know, I would help write for Farmer's character, or Paul would help write for Thorny's character, and you develop everyone's character, and then the very last thing you do is cast, so then you're not writing for yourself and only developing one character.
Speaking of Super Troopers 2, here's a little tidbit. Did you know that the opening scene was actually filmed in his backyard and my front yard?
Yeah.
At the Quab in Ware, Massachusetts.
Oh, you guys live right there,
Yeah,
huh?
I live in
I was the guy with the straw under the water going.
And here's something else. That whole scene where you filmed that, my daughter, I'm dating myself, my daughter was married right there. So she went to the theater, and that whole scene took her right out. She goes, because everything changed. She goes, I was married.
This is the life story of Louis Perry.
I told her I'd bring it up. I told her I'd bring that up. But yeah, you guys.
That's cool. Yeah, we shot most Super Troopers 2 right in the New England area, just west of Boston.
Entire panel time.
Yeah, most of it, we shot the opening scene in the Quabbin Reservoir, and then the rest of it was kind of in Hopkinton, and then Concord.
Yeah, that's your neck of the woods. Look at that. That's like the 7 degrees of Canada,
Yeah.
some crap like that, right?
It was beautiful. We had to basically, it was supposed to be Canada, but you just were like 15 minutes west of Boston and felt like you were in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, it's pretty much where my town is.
Which is convenient.
Yes. Beer Fest. I just revisited. I'm not a beer drinker, but I laughed my ass off, man. The disclaimer at the beginning of the movie. Why did you do that? I mean, did you have to do that? Did the studio make you do that? Or do you guys say, fuck it, this is going to be funny, put it in?
No, we thought that if people tried to do what we did in that movie, they'd kill themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, people ask us if we drank real beer while making that movie, which makes me think that people think that they could drink real beer while doing that movie. We would be dead. And so we thought we should put a disclaimer on.
So what was it, apple juice?
It was a lot of O'Doul's. And I'm not. We had to, because like you start like 5 o'clock in the morning. Like if you really tried to drink that much beer, you would not be able to get past like 9 o'clock.
Yeah, officer, straight drunk, I'm not
I got 16 hours left. I mean, it's like an 18-hour day. When you're making a low-budget film, you got to like try to get as much as you can in a short amount of time. So you're shooting for like 18 hours a day, you would be completely out of it by 9 o'clock in the morning. So it was O'Doul's, and then if it was dark beer, it was O'Doul's and coffee, which is pretty disgusting.
I was just trying to say that.
And then if you were like finishing the day, or like my character is drunk for the whole third act, so I was allowed to drink more than other guys. And you had a signal you give the prop master, and then he would switch out the fake beer for the real beer. But insurance-wise, you're not allowed to have real beer on set. Like insurance-wise, the prop master's not allowed to like serve you real beer in a movie. But you had sponsors, Rodeburger, Spaten, and Red Stripe were our sponsors. And so the physical beer was on set, but the prop master by law was not allowed to serve it to you. And so you had to have like secret code. Smoke signals you could send up to the prop master that he was in the back of his truck. Yeah.
What was your favorite movie out of all? What was that?
Or falling face first.
Falling Face First. Out of all of them, what was your favorite movie?
I Making it or just like a fan favorite?
Fan favorite.
Fan favorite? Oh, maybe Super Troopers, I guess. I mean, they're all like your children, so you all kind of like them. I haven't seen Club Dread in a long time, and we get a really weird reaction to Club Dread. Like, you get clapped, and then you get a lot of people that want their money back. They want to punch you in the face. They want to walk up, because I think it came out right after Super Troopers, and everybody expected like a sequel or something just like it. But we always loved Monty Python growing up, and like I said, we were a sketch comedy group and performed in New York City for a long time. So we really wanted to try different uniforms, different characters, like different plots. And so we wanted to do something completely out of the blue, and like a comedy horror film was like as far away as you could get from Super Troopers.
Coolest thing in that movie was the Pac-Man.
Pac-Man thing was
that
fun.
was just.
So yeah, we tried to incorporate like comedy, but into like making a real horror film, and a lot of people were just completely thrown off by it. And so they thought they were going to see Super Trooper sequel, and they saw Club Dread, and they're like, I want my money back, man. What was that? But then I think now people years later kind of appreciate it. And we did a thing at the Alamo Draft House in Texas recently where we screened it and then did a Q&A afterwards, and I hadn't seen it projected in 20 years. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was like the movie kind of held up. I think if you go back and see it not in the lens of it being directly right after Super Troopers, I think you can appreciate it better. And the director's cut's better than the theatrical cut.
The director's cut.
Yeah.
What they usually are.
It's longer and explains the plot a little bit more.
What was the biggest budget that they gave you, and what was your reaction when? Yeah, that's what I said.
I was saying that it's like they gave.
Yeah, well, the studio goes, okay, guys, this is your budget, and what was your reaction when saying they gave you your budget was this much? Your budget, was this much. Yeah, I was on Beer Fest. What was? Then they gave you this budget, and you're like, holy shit. Did you have that type?
We said no, thank you. We would not enjoy that. No, thank you. We always had incredibly low budgets. Puddle Cruiser was $100,000. Super Troopers was $1 million. So it was like super low budget. And then it was a little bit higher for Club Dread because Fox Searchlight made it. And then Warner Brothers stepped up to try to make. For them, it was a really super low budget, but for us, it was like a budget. And I think that was like $12 million that Warner Brothers gave us to make Beer Fest. And so that's why that was like our biggest budget. $12 million compared to like Avengers or Deadpool. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, like $12 million was like a drop in the bucket. It was like a tax write-off for them. For us, it was like pew, shooting off fireworks and
All right, Jamie, what do you got?
What was the weirdest thing a fan ever did to you, for you, gave you?
To me?
Yeah, it was like, that really caught you off guard.
I guess the tattoo thing always catches you off guard. When someone walks up to you and shows you like a tattoo of you or something permanent on their body, you run away. You run away. No, it's always cool. I mean, it's obviously flattering, but I think it's it's amazing, right? That somebody would permanently put your name or face on their body. Yeah.
Anybody ask you to sign something extremely weird?
Sure.
What?
What would you? I think you can imagine, right?
Well, we asked that question to a couple of celebrities, and they came up with something I can't say it here. So I mean, did anybody like here sign this prosthetic legs? We did have that once.
Sign a prosthetic leg. I have signed my own prosthetic leg.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Microphone at your head and be like, "You dummy!"
I do. I have a fake leg.
Oh really? Oh shit! I feel stupid.
It was on P90X.
You were on P90X?
I was in P90X.
P90X, yeah. He did.
I feel like a dick because I did not know that. And I'm
I feel like a dick.
I really should have given you my notes beforehand.
Yes, I think so.
You have scared off these two very nice people.
Hey, where are you going?
We got a lot to see.
It's true. It's
Well, we
true.
missed you. I missed you, Super Troopers. This is going to be my Mother's Day. Super
You want to come up and
Troopers
shake his hand? Can you shake your hand? Give me a big
Of course.
hug?
Of course. You want to kiss him?
Thank you for coming. Make this the
Yeah, thank you.
fan experience.
Oh, so we have to see something. What did we see? I don't remember.
Are you guys here tomorrow?
Avengers.
Are you here tomorrow?
Well, Super Troopers 2 will be out on digital on Tuesday. And, you can pre-order it on iTunes or whatever Service comes out on this Tuesday.
All right, great. We did
Enjoy it.
Mother's Day, but I want Super Troopers, pizza, and beer. That's what I wanted for Mother's Day.
Give us a round of applause. What a good thing.
All right, I'm gonna let Jamie and Jeremy take over. I feel extremely stupid now.
First off, I know it doesn't matter to me.
Don't worry about it.
I'm not sensitive about
I'll-
my wooden leg.
I'll put my foot in my mouth later on.
I feel like grabbing that guy's shirt right now and wearing it. You see that?
Best asshole outfit ever.
Just take the best asshole
All right.
ever. Wow.
Well, actually, since you put your foot in your mouth already, I'm going to go right into it. I watched yesterday a show. It's a bakery show. Nailed it, and Jay was on it.
Yeah.
Have you done any?
Any
do
baking
you,
shows?
do you get to now get to be like, hey, I really like you guys' show. Can I guest star and stuff? Like, is that what he did, or was he asked to do that?
I don't know the story of Jay's baking story, but I do know that I haven't seen it, but I've heard he was filming it and he had to go pick up his daughter, and he said, "I feel terrible about this, but I have to go pick up my daughter," and he left, and they left that in the show, and they made him look like a dick for leaving in the middle of the show.
I know the feeling.
I watched it last night. It was great.
Didn't they edit it somehow so it makes him look like a dick for leaving? in the
Oh,
middle?
absolutely.
Yeah. But he said before, he's like, God, I feel really terrible about this, but I have to go pick up my daughter at 2 o'clock. And they're like, oh, cool, no problem. And then 2 o'clock came about, and he's like, oh, I gotta go. And they edited it into the show to make him look like he's a jerk, like he's leaving in the middle of the show.
I'm glad I edit the footage of all our shows.
It's
I feel
okay.
like
It's a
a
Netflix
dick.
show.
I'm gonna take that part out.
No, I'll keep it in. I mean, I feel hard. I'm gonna let these two. Go ahead, guys. It's all you.
Oh, I got one more. You were on Snoop Dogg's G Network.
Yeah.
Are you
From what I
420
remember,
friendly?
From what I remember, I was on that
Are
show,
you
yeah.
420 friendly?
I'm very 420. Well, I think all of us in Broken Lizard are very 420
That's
friendly.
fantastic.
And
I'm a farmer myself.
we are coming out with a line of Smoking Lizards, going to be called. Yeah. In the legal states.
We live in Massachusetts. We live in
Massachusetts, there you go. Massachusetts, look up in Vegas. We went on the Snoop show, and he never stops rolling. And I would say that we're semi-decent at keeping up on that kind of thing. We're friends with Willie. We've been on the bus a couple times. And Snoop never stops rolling and passing. To the point it got that we were 5 comedians who became moot. We were on the show trying to promote Super Troopers 2, I think it was Super Troopers 2, and none of us said a word. To the point I think he said, if you guys could pull somebody over, who would you like to pull over? And we all sat there. He's like, I thought you guys were the comedians on this show. They watch it now, and the 5 of us are just sitting there behind our Ray-Bans with nothing, not a word coming out of our mouth. So technically we were on the show, but
Keep going. I'm keeping
Yeah.
Got nothing? All right, Jamie, I'm passing over. Actually, anybody out there got a question?
So if you could pull over any comedian, who would it be?
Me, shoot me for saying what I did.
Maybe Snoop can edit this in post.
yes, Snoop said it would. He would be Justin Bieber for him.
He's a believer.
Anybody else have a question? Quick, just stand up, go over to the mic. Panda, go ahead.
So we tried to
I
do
know
the
who you are.
One funny thing we did on that show though is we tried to call a pet store and play the meow game with Snoop. And so Snoop actually called the number for the pet store and he would do the meow. And the guy on the other end had zero sense of humor about it and didn't get it. And it was kind of fun though to play the meow game with Snoop trying to call a pet store and play the meow game.
What interesting listeners.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hey man, right meow.
This is kind of a two-parter, but it's quick. Favorite light and dark beer?
Favorite light and dark beer? My favorite beer, hands down, is Hamm's. And dark beer, Hamm's with coffee.
I respect that.
Anybody else before we continue on the
Does
question?
anybody know what Hamm's is? That kind of people don't know what Hamm's beer is. What is it? It's just like I'm from Minnesota. It's this original. It's like a PBR, but it's out of Minneapolis. They used to have a great commercial like hams be refreshing, hams be refreshing.
What's your name?
Delicious.
Ben.
Ben?
Eric 8, Constant Ranger 819.
What's that?
Constant Ranger 819 on Facebook.
Oh, hi. How are you? Good seeing you.
What was it
In
like
person.
doing Slamming Sam in the movie?
What was it like making it?
With, what's his face?
Michael Clark Duncan.
Yeah.
Big Mike. What was it like making it?
And
You got punched by him.
I got punched by him a lot, yeah. He's a method actor, and for some reason he felt like he had to punch me, even when he was off camera. We were shooting that lineup scene where I played Guy Meat Drapes, and I, ask him how many.
Oh, God.
He sees he has. I don't want to swear. It's like this is probably going on in the world, right?
No, go ahead.
Anyway, the champ, he gets mad at me, and he's like swiping me with the punching. But the camera's like way down there. We have a big lineup, with Kobe and Paul and Jay, and they're all down there. And the camera's on their coverage way down there, and Mike is over here, like, in front of my face, and then he punches me in the stomach, and he kept hitting me, like, he literally was punching me, and I was like, Mike, the camera, you can do it when the camera's on me, but, like, it's still down there, like, we still have, like, 8 guys we have to get through before he gets to me. And he would hit me so hard that he would lift me off my feet, and I would knock the painting off the wall behind me. And so if you watch it, like the continuity's all screwed up, because it's normal, and then you'll see a shot where the painting's off. And eventually I had to take my waiter pad out of my apron, which is supposed to be a prop, and I put it in front of my stomach. And I left that day with a big, gigantic Michael Clark Duncan fist bruise on my abdomen.
What's your name?
Yes. Hi, I'm Mauricio. I wanted to ask you, are you guys thinking about doing a Beer Fest 2? And another thing I want to ask is, what's in the future for the guys?
Broken Lizard guys? Sure. So first answer is, at the end of Beer Fest, we wanted to create a way to get our hero in the movie. And Jay had just directed Dukes of Hazzard, and in Dukes of Hazzard, Jay had cast as Uncle Jesse our hero named Willie Nelson. And we wanted to try to figure out how to we're like, oh my God, you got to work with Willie? And like, he's like, yeah, he's cool. Like, oh, how can we get him in Beer Fest? So we tried to get him in Beer Fest somehow, but he didn't drink beer. He says beer's the work of the devil. And so we kind of came up with this joke at the end, tagging along that we take a vacation in Amsterdam, and we're there. We happen to coincidentally run into Willie Nelson, who lost his teammates, and he's looking for a team for the secret super underground smoking competition. And we're like, hey! And then it ends and it says, coming soon, Podfest. And we always thought that was just going to be like a joke. That was just like a one-offer, not really thinking that anybody would see the movie and think that there was actually going to be a sequel. But we started getting incoming phone calls from 50 Cent, Cheech and Chong, Method Man, and all of a sudden the phone started ringing, and they're like, hey man, I want to be in that movie. And we're like, I don't know if there's really a movie there, so.
That was, what, 2006?
Yeah, it was 2006 like that, yeah. So we then called Warner Brothers, and we said we got this great, cast of people that want to be in it. It would have a, multi-generational, it could be great. But, they said, well, we're the studio that makes Yogi Bear. And so they were like a family-friendly studio, so maybe if the laws loosen up, or maybe if they own the intellectual property, we're definitely talking to them about maybe trying to get the intellectual property out of there. If they don't want to make it, then maybe we can go try to make it somewhere else. But currently it's not lined up.
So, but if you were going to call it Ash Fest and do it about Ash, would they still own it?
They still own the fact of all those characters. So, like, if we wanted to go make, we originally thought of an idea like Pot Quest instead of like Pot Fest. We were like Pot Quest. And we outlined that story, but we couldn't play like Barry and Landfill and Todd. Like, we couldn't take any of those characters. It would have to be completely different characters just to name Pot Quest. But I think people would want to see like Landfill and that gang and Fank and stuff like that. So we'd probably have to try to get that out of Warner Brothers and set it up somewhere else, like Netflix or something.
Will you hold open casting calls for that one?
A lot of people have been wanting to audition for that movie. Yeah. There's a second part of that question.
Oh yeah, what was part 2?
No, that was, I said about Beer Fest, and then I was asking what's next.
What's next for the guys? So we had, I don't know exactly what's next for the guys. Like right now I think Disney's trying to buy Fox, and so things are kind of on hold. So, we just did Super Troopers 2, which is kind of funny. We were just, like, Super Troopers 2, physically it's still in theaters, And like 3 weeks ago, we just came off a promotional tour, and we'd be in theaters, and we're about to screen the film, and like we'd ask for a Q&A. Anybody have any questions? They're like, yeah, what's your next movie? Like, Jesus, man, it took 10 years to get this movie made, you know? And then people are like, what's your next movie? So we don't have, physically a next movie set up yet, but we're writing, and potentially Super Troopers 3 might be a movie because Fox was happy with how it turned out in the box office. Very nice.
You can stay at my house when you guys are filming that quadrant.
There you go.
Yeah, farm fresh, everything.
You do something like you pretend it's Hatch Fest, and it turns into Super Troopers.
Oh, there you go. So it's like a dream sequence.
Yes, something.
They get so high that they turn into cops.
I'll be wearing it tomorrow.
I like it.
You like that? You're going to give him credit for it?
No,
not at all.
No, we have an outline for Super Troopers 3. It's called Super Troopers 3 Winter Soldiers.
Anybody else before we continue?
So, you guys have a ton of cameos in your movies, like Michael Clark Duncan. Not that it's a cameo, but do they mainly just reach out to you guys after seeing some of your movies and been like, hey man, I'd love to work with you guys. You got anything for me to jump in on?
Absolutely not.
No, not me. Not me.
Right out loud. No, the only time I think anyone's ever reached out was with that with Podfest.
No
I think it's the only time anyone's
So
ever
everybody else
reached
is
out.
gonna go plan.
So the original is sort of like how we set up our structure is. So originally, when we wrote Puddle Cruiser doesn't necessarily have any stars, does super low budget. Super Troopers, we wrote this scene where there was 5 of us are cops, and then we had a captain, and we thought that we would try to get like a Bill Murray. Obviously, it was like sort of our goal because we are huge fans of Bill Murray growing up, or Chevy Chase, one of our sort of comedic heroes. But we didn't have any money, very low budget. So as soon as we would put out offers, and originally John Goodman was attached to play O'Hagan, and then the money fell through from our investors, and so he got mad because he found out we didn't have any money. It wasn't necessarily his fault, but he thought we did.
Yeah.
But it was our investor who lied to us, who said there was money. It took a long time to get that movie made. But so then we thought we had like a list of all those comedic actors, and we're going down. As soon as there was no money to offer them, they would say no, and so you go down the next list. And all of a sudden we got this one incoming phone call from an agent saying, hey, would you ever consider Brian Cox? And we were like, Hannibal Lecter? It was like, he wasn't really known for comedic roles per se, but he was very known for playing Hannibal Lecter before Anthony Hopkins in Manhunter, and a lot of sort of like pretty serious, heavy roles in indie films. And so we're like, well, that's kind of interesting, And so his agent came to us because growing up was a huge Jerry Lewis fan. And because he had played such serious, dramatic roles, no one ever considered him for comedies, right? You normally go down the list of these comedic actors, but he always wanted to play comedy. He's a great actor. Growing up, he was a huge fan of Jerry Lewis, and he always felt that he could do comedy and no one gave him a chance. And so even though we had no money, he was willing to kind of make an independent film for no money so he could get a chance to prove himself as a comedian a little bit more. And we obviously respected him as an actor, and we're thinking, wow, this guy was just coming off of doing King Lear in Bombay. Now he wants to come do this small little indie comedy called Super Troopers. And so, yeah, we were excited to have him on there. And he turned out to end up being kick-ass, right? Like, he was great. Like, as a comedian, his timing's impeccable. And the fact that he came back to do it the second time was even very cool as well. He said he gets recognized a lot for Super Troopers, even though he's done all these iconic parts in like Wolverine and Bourne Identity and stuff like that. He still gets recognized a lot for doing Super Troopers. And I think he was grateful for that, to have that comedic chance, so that's why he kind of came back and did it. But after that, we enjoyed the model that formed, that we would have like a serious actor that had heft and ability, and that they could sort of center a movie, and then as like non-experienced comedians, we could sort of dance around them, and they would anchor the plot and the story, and like they'd actually be a good actor, and then we could just do our thing around it. So then we had Brian, and then we did with Bill Paxton and Club Dread, and then Cloris Leachman in Beer Fest, and Michael Clark Duncan in Slam Sam.
So who would be your ideal celebrity like that you, besides Bill Murray, besides Chevy Chase, serious actor, if you had a choice of one person, that we want that person, who would it be? Who would be your dream cast?
Christopher Plummer.
Really?
I don't know, I was making that up.
I thought you were serious. Because that did you get stupid? I'm like,
Who's the best dramatic actor? Robert De Niro's done a lot of comedy, I think.
Yeah.
Like this and all those things. What's that?
I was just saying, the gentleman from Take.
Take it?
Oh, Lee Nielsen?
Oh,
You said
Liam
Leslie
Yeah,
Nielsen. I was like, dude, that's all
Like, he got a lot of comedy.
Liam Neeson, yeah. Liam Neeson would be good. Sure.
All right, now were you involved in Dukes of Hazzard?
Jay directed it. We were hired to do a punch-up on the script. There was already a script that existed. We were asked to punch up a scene. They liked the punch-up that we did in the scene, and they asked us to come be the writers on set.
What scene was that?
I
If you don't mind.
can't remember what we originally punched up, but we ended up doing a pretty good-sized punch-up because we were then the writers on set. And then when we submitted the script, we originally got credit. The writer took us to arbitration, and we got taken off the script as writers. There's a big deal in Hollywood. They don't like what they call bumper and fender guys or something like that. Body and fender guys. Is that if there's an original writer and they bring on writers and the director's involved in that writing group, you have to have like a 60% threshold of what you changed. They don't want body and fender guys to come in and just change original writers who are very protective of the original script. So we got bumped, even though we did a ton of writing and spent like months.
Since you were on
we got
set,
0 credit.
Since you were on set, did you take the car for a spin?
I wish.
No, I would.
They don't allow chumps like me to do that. we had like 80 of them. I mean, it was kind of cool being on set of a huge budget. That was like $100 million set. And it was kind of cool to be on a set like that because, obviously we were like a tiny low budget thing where if you crash a car, you basically have to pay for it yourself. Where those guys, if they would have like 80, they had they took over like a whole car dealership and they just made like 80 General Lees. And there's a scene when they're cruising around and it goes over a jump and it goes flying through the air like 60 feet in the highway and it lands on the highway right in the middle of traffic.
Yep.
And those are all like fake cars and stunt drivers and they would just launch this thing. The first time they launch it, it just goes they just bring in another one, they try to do it again and and like 10, they just like crashed 10 of those cars that they've been working on.
Watch, though.
Yeah, and then they finally, on like take 30, they make it work. And it's unbelievable, right? This is the money that they can afford to spend on those things. It's crazy.
All right, we got the 5-minute warning. Anyone else have any questions for Erik? Anyone?
Anybody?
All right, I'm going to lead this to Jeremy and Jamie. That's what you have to say. This is what I deal with. So do you have to deal with stuff like this with your guys?
Yeah, but you guys aren't writing things. Like, do you go, because we are a mess when we're together.
Do you guys hang out outside of work? Or is work?
Not
No, actually, she lives 2 hours.
Yeah,
It's
2
20
hours.
minutes from me. She lives 2 hours away from us, and we just Skype and talk and meet up at cons. I make an asshole out of myself.
No.
Yeah, and that's.
Are you guys all like locally together, or how do you?
He's from Minnesota.
Yeah, we
I know where he's from.
for about 25 years we got together and wrote every single day. I mean, we were in New York. We were together. We lived together. We were roommates together. But then people started having families and stuff like that. So ultimately, we don't live together anymore, which would be weird, right? But we then had an office where we'd meet every day, and so it's a little bit more just separate now. It's a little bit more of a challenge to get together and meet as much as we do, but we still write, just not every day together.
Who's the gimp of the group?
Who's the what?
The gimp.
The gimp, that's me.
That's me too.
I have a fake leg, I'm the gimp.
Oh, jeez. Come on, I feel bad enough as it is.
Oh, why didn't you guys talk about this?
I did not. Seriously, we had a celebrity. We were interviewing them, and he came up. And I said, "Okay, what was the weirdest thing somebody signed?" And he goes, "I swear to God, this guy came up, popped it on the table, maybe signed it."
Now you're sitting next to the guy that brought
I know, and I feel like an asshole so bad. My game is totally gone, and yeah.
So I was in it. You guys know Mike Mitchell? He did American Deuce Bigelow.
Yes.
And Shrek. So he directed Deuce Bigelow and Shrek. But in Deuce Bigelow, he has a wooden leg joke.
Yeah.
Do you remember that at all?
Yep, I remember.
Someone's got a wooden leg. I can't remember Do you guys remember the joke?
It was one of Deuce's clients.
One of his clients had a fake leg, and he ends up like taking it off or something.
Yes, like they were in the bedroom, and he lifted up her leg, and then the leg popped off.
Right,
Yes.
right. So we had a meeting with Mike to potentially write something with him. Have a great meeting. We're laughing on the way out, and I said, "Hey, you got something against people with wooden legs?" And I pulled mine off and I threw it at him.
He must have felt like I do. My God. All right, you're at a comic con.
You can see that I don't care.
I'm glad, because I feel like a dead man. All right, you're at a comic con. Do you collect anything?
Legs.
Touche! Seriously, you collect anything?
I do. I love the Flash. So ever since I was a kid, I loved Flash comic books. And every comic I buy one.
Really? Did you ever meet John Wesley Shipp?
No.
He's a good friend of ours.
Yeah.
So to make up for the whole leg thing,
We'll introduce you sometime.
we'll introduce you to him sometime. Dude, I feel awful. Holy shit. Anyhow, anybody else, before they throw us out of this room, have a question for this? Yes, that guy. What's
Because
your
Lewis
name?
doesn't have a leg to stand on.
Well, it's not a question, but I just want to say thank you for making
welcome.
Super Trooper 1.
Alright.
Just because as a little awkward Indian boy, that movie kind of made me cool for at least a week.
They don't call you Thorny.
No, my high school was pretty brutal. Usually they call me the little terrorist boy, but
Thorny's way cooler. Thorny's way cooler.
yeah, so that was cool for like at least a week. So yeah, that was awesome.
Well, Jay was talking about that. Jay said there weren't really any Indian comedian mentors growing up.
No.
Like Jay grew up in Chicago, and he's like there was never really sort of like an Indian comedian person that he sort of like grew up mentoring or looking up to. He loved Richard Pryor, but he never had like that equivalent in the Indian community.
Yeah, well, again, thank you for making the movie, and thanks for making the second one.
Yeah, our pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah. And again,
All right.
for just Jake, all you guys, thank you.
Of course.
And that's all we got, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming!
Check out Jim's schedule if you haven't seen it yet. It'll be out on Tuesday.
It's great.
Woo! Thank you.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation. Found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.